Good afternoon, sir. Do you acknowledge you're still under oath and still sworn to tell the truth?
Yes, I do,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor.
This is a resumption of direct examination. Mr. Chernoff, good afternoon.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon. Ms. Phillips, good afternoon.
Mr. Chernoff?
We were talking about you being contacted by Peter Lopez on behalf of Michael Jackson.
Correct.
In 2007.
Correct.
And the contact was made. For the purpose of perhaps using AEG as a promoter of production. Did you have any idea what the meeting was going to be about with Peter Lopez?
Well, I assumed the first meeting was going to be to talk about the potential of Michael getting back on the stage again.
Okay, now was that something that AEG Live would be interested in?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, you say absolutely. Tell us what you mean by that.
So the greatest star in contemporary music. So.
And getting Michael Jackson back on stage in 2007 would have been a monumental achievement. It would have been a fantastic concert, a great sell. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And that's something AEG was very interested in.
That is correct.
In fact, any entertainment company would be interested in that particular.
I would assume so.
All right.
I can only speak for hours, but yes.
Okay. Now, did you keep track of Michael Jackson's career up to that time? Were you aware of the last time he had actually had a concert?
Just no more or less so than just being in the business, and I didn't do any specific research on his tours.
To your knowledge, when was the last time that Michael Jackson had been on stage, done concerts?
I honestly cannot recollect. I'm not sure.
In the 90s?
It would be the late 90s, I'm sure. You know, it's going to be the 90s.
Were you familiar in 2007 with where Michael Jackson was living? Did you know where he was living?
No, I didn't know.
All right. The meeting with Peter Lopez was held where?
In Las Vegas.
Okay, and that was with Peter Lopez and Michael Jackson in attendance.
That is correct.
Who else was at the meeting?
To the best of my recollection, Mr. Chernoff, it was Ramon Bain, who was serving as Michael's manager / spokesperson at the time. There was a lawyer named Cross from, I think, Maryland. There were Ramon Bain's assistant, I don't remember her name, and there was another gentleman there. And then there were a number of AEG executives besides me.
It's a pretty large meeting.
It was, yes.
Where was it held?
At Turnberry Isle in the wine tasting room.
Okay. In Las Vegas?
Yes, in Las Vegas.
Why was Las Vegas chosen?
I honestly have no idea. It was the choice location that Peter Lopez gave us.
All right. You had this meeting. How long did the meeting last?
Meeting probably lasted about an hour and a half.
All right. And did the group come to any resolution about what was going to be done?
No, there was no resolution. It was the first meeting.
All right. After that meeting, was there any subsequent contact with Peter Lopez or Michael Jackson? I mean, in 2007. I'd like to limit it to
not with Michael Jackson. There were conversations and there was contact with Peter Lopez and Ramon Bain.
All right. So there was subsequent negotiations, discussions about concerts.
That's correct.
Ultimately, did these negotiations amount to anything? Was there any concert scheduled as a result of these negotiations?
No.
Okay. And then, since nothing occurred from these negotiations, did you drop the matter, or did you continue approaching Peter Lopez to set something up, some concert tour up?
No, at that point, it was readily apparent that Michael wasn't ready to take the stage again, so we didn't pursue it at that moment in time.
All right. When did you next get approached, or when did you next approach Michael Jackson or his people to try to arrange for a concert series?
That would have been, I believe, to the best of my recollection, late August 2008.
All right, 2008. Who contacted you?
Tom Barrick's office at Colony Capital contacted my company.
Okay. Now, this was out of the blue contact?
Yeah,
Just phone call?
yes, correct.
Who is Tom Barrack?
Tom Barrack is a principal in a company called Colony Capital.
Is Colony Capital in?
Just a moment. Okay. Yeah, it's distracting, the overhead projector. Thank you.
That's still not working.
Deputy Jones will accomplish that.
Miracle work.
Okay? Could you spell the word before capital?
Capital C, well, I assume it's spelled C-A-P-I-T-A-L.
No.
Oh,
It's Colony.
The word before.
Colony.
Colony.
Colony, C-O-L-O-N-Y.
Thank you.
Is Colony, may I continue?
Sure.
Is Colony Capital an entertainment company?
Not to my knowledge.
An entertainment agency?
No.
What kind of company is it?
My knowledge of it is that it is like a private equity fund.
All right. And the owner, the principal in that company is Tom Barrack?
Right. I think there are numerous partners.
Okay. Who did Tom Barrack contact? Was it you directly?
No, he actually contacted Phil Anschutz.
Who is Phil Anschutz?
He's the chairman of AEG, someone I report to.
He is the Anschutz and Anschutz Entertainment Group?
Yes, he is.
All right. Tom Barrack knew Phil Anschutz, to your knowledge?
I believe so.
And then you were contacted by Phil Anschutz?
Correct.
Were you familiar with any involvement that Tom Barrack had with Michael Jackson?
Sustain 350 and 352.
Did Phil Anschutz, when he called you, what instructions were you given?
Objection, hearsay, relevant.
I'm going to sustain the objection. I think we can go to the next step. Thank you.
After the conversation, after the boss called you, what did you do?
I had my office set up an appointment for me to go and meet with Mr. Barrack and some of his other partner, a fellow named Richard Nanula, at Colony Capital.
All right. And this was where? Where is this?
In Century City.
I'm sorry.
In Century City, California, Los Angeles.
All right. Was the meeting already set up for you?
No, I set it up.
Okay. You made a phone call and you set up the meeting.
That's correct.
How soon did you meet with Tom Barrack and his partners?
I believe it was the next day or the day after, to the best of my recollection.
All right. And then what happened?
I went in there. I had a meeting with them. Tom Barrack, I think it was Richard Nanula, who explained to me that they...
Mr. Phillips, could you speak up just a little bit?
Okay, sure. I'll get closer. I believe it was, to the best of my recollection, a gentleman named Richard Nanula, who was a partner in Colony Capital, pretty much led the meeting and explained to me that that Colony Capital had purchased the note on Neverland, Michael's ranch in North Santa Barbara County, had purchased the note on his ranch from a company called Fortress.
All right. And what did that have to do with the concert?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Was there conversation about a concert during this meeting? Or concert tour series?
That what Richard Nanula
You
said.
can just answer that specific question. The partial answer stricken disregard.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
All right. And who had that conversation? You and who?
And Richard Nanula and Tom Barrack.
All right. After this meeting, after this discussion about a concert, what did you do next, Mr. Phillips?
They set a meeting up for me with a gentleman named Dr. Tomei, who was presented to me as Michael Jackson's manager at that time.
All right, Dr. Tomei.
Correct.
And the meeting was already set up for you?
It was set up after that meeting at Colony, or during that meeting at Colony.
All right. And where was this meeting held?
At the Bel Air Hotel.
All right. And when was this meeting held?
I'm not sure, but it would have been the next day or the day after. I believe it was the same week that I had the meeting at Colony Capital.
You did say that you had the meeting at Colony Capital in August of 2008.
Right.
It would have been in August then? You had this meeting with Tomei?
That is correct.
All right. And it was at the Bel Air Hotel?
Yes.
Okay. You went to it was the next day, you went to this meeting at the Bel Air Hotel. to meet with Dr. Tomei. Had you ever met Dr. Tomei?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained.
Did you know Dr. Tomei?
Objection, relevance.
Sustained. Let's get to the next step. Thank you.
Did you recognize Dr. Tomei when you walked? I mean, how did the meeting occur? I mean,
Just a moment. The objection is sustained. There was a meeting. The next question.
okay. Can you tell us where in the Bel Air Hotel the meeting was?
Objection, relevant.
Sustained.
We can agree that somewhere within the confines of the Bel Air Hotel you met with Dr. Tomei, right?
Just to clarify
Yes.
your question, I'm not sure it was the next day.
Okay.
You said the next day.
All right. But you did meet with Dr. Tomei.
That is correct.
All right. Who else was at the meeting?
Just Dr. Tomei.
All right. And what was the discussion about?
That Michael Jackson
Relevance limited to the concert tour.
Did this have to do with a proposed concert
Yes,
tour?
yes.
The objection is overruled. You may answer it, sir.
Okay, Michael Jackson wanted to restart his career. The primary part of it being touring live, but he was also going to put out new music during the course of the tour.
Was Dr. Tomei in your understanding, was Dr. Tomei a representative of Michael Jackson?
He introduced himself to me as Michael's manager.
Okay. Now, you were once again obviously interested in putting that together. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And whereas in 2007 you said that it was clear Michael Jackson was not ready, was it your impression that based on the information that you had received that Michael Jackson was ready to do these concert tours, or you just didn't know?
I didn't know this was the first meeting. This is what I was being told.
Right. It was kind of an odd scenario that puts you into this position with Dr. Tomei in the Bel Air Hotel, wasn't it?
Objection, leading. Counsel's testifying.
Sustained.
The process that started these conversations about the tour with Michael Jackson, was that usually how things happened?
Objection, vague.
Do you understand it?
I understand it enough to answer.
You may answer it. Overruled.
Okay. There's nothing usual about my job or my business and how things get started or things happen. So no, this was just, for me, just another meeting about Michael touring.
All right. Did you followed up on the meeting with Dr. Tomei?
Yes.
How did you follow up?
We had numerous phone conversations about it. There were other meetings, subsequent meetings, and there were negotiations for Michael to actually return to the stage.
All right. These negotiations, these subsequent meetings, these phone calls, they were all done with Dr. Tomei?
That is not all of them. He had an attorney, two attorneys actually.
All right. And who were these attorneys?
Dennis Hawk and Peter Lopez.
All right. Peter Lopez again.
Yes.
At some point, did you have a face-to-face meeting with Michael Jackson?
Yes, I did.
When was this?
The first meeting with Michael Jackson in 2008 was, I believe, sometime in September at the Bel Air Hotel.
And who was in attendance at this meeting?
It was me, Dr. Tomei, and Michael. It was the three of us. Plus, he had some of his bodyguards were at the hotel, but they weren't in the meeting.
Were you familiar with Michael Jackson's bodyguards? Did you know them?
No, that was the first time I had met them.
And did you subsequently come to know them?
Objection, relevance, Your Honor.
Overruled.
Vaguely.
Vaguely.
Yeah.
All right. So in September 2008, this is the first time now you've spoken directly with Michael Jackson about the possibility of concerts, right?
That is correct.
All right. And Dr. Tomei is there. You've spoken to him frequently about
That's
it.
correct.
Right? By the time you met in September 2008, had you already discussed with Dr. Tomei the parameters of what AEG would be interested in doing?
Yes, we discussed our concept and our ideas.
All right. And what was that, if you recall? Your concept, your ideas, as of September 2008.
Okay, and the plan that and it wasn't just me, it was the other executives in my company, like Paul Gongaware, in laying out a plan to present to Michael in terms of starting his touring career again. Since I think it had been 12 years since he was on stage, is my recollection at the time, was to actually start in London at the O2 and do what we call a residency show at the O2. It was internally, we called it the Mountain Coming to Muhammad, meaning instead of an artist touring with 20 trucks and all the expense of that, get fixed into one venue and then advertise it around the world. Now, obviously, it takes a very special artist to be able to do that with. And that was the first phase of what could have been a multi-year touring plan.
So you were thinking in terms of phases at that time?
That's correct.
And this had been discussed with Dr. Tomei?
Yes, it had.
Okay. So by the time you met with Michael Jackson, you don't know what Dr. Tomei discussed with Michael Jackson, I take it, but he might have discussed this particular issue, concerts at O2 as a first phase towards something greater.
Objection, relevant speculation.
Sustained.
Is that what you were going to talk to Dr. Tomei and Michael Jackson about in September of 2008?
Well, that question makes reference to an answer I just did not allow and a question where the objection was sustained. You're going to have to re-ask the question.
As part of the conversation at the meeting that you were having on September 2008, was it to discuss this phase plan?
Yes.
Okay. And did you discuss that with Michael Jackson?
Yes, I did.
Okay. Tell us, did it appear to you that Michael Jackson, your particular perception, that he was receptive to the idea?
Very.
Okay. And at this point in your conversations with him, did you feel like that he was ready to do this tour, ready to do these concerts?
Well, it's hard to answer your question when you say feel. It was apparent from his discussions with me that he was motivated and energized and receptive to the idea.
All right. After September 2008, did you have another meeting to discuss this with Michael Jackson and Tomei, Dr. Tomei?
Yes, I did. We had a number of meetings after that.
All right. And these were all held where?
At the Bel Air Hotel.
All right. Now, I want to direct your attention to these meetings that you had. This was all sort of narrowing down the parameters of the contract, the agreement. Is that fair to say?
We never discussed money with Michael. The negotiations were done separately. The meetings with Michael were more creative.
All right. Well, let's go to October, Halloween 2008. Do you recall a meeting that you had there with Michael Jackson and Dr. Tomei?
Yes.
All right. And who else was at this meeting?
It was Michael, Dr. Tomei, and I. I remember because we were sitting in front of the fireplace in the suite that Michael was staying in. And there was a nanny or someone who was handling the kids, watching the kids, and then the kids were there. And the reason I knew it was Halloween is because they were dressed in costume.
Did you recognize the nanny? Do you know the nanny?
No.
All right. What was the conversation about in the suite in October 2008?
Objection, relevance, or limited to as it relates to the concert?
With that limitation overruled, you may answer.
Michael was expressing to me one of the reasons he had decided to restart his career.
All right, and what was one of those reasons?
The primary reason was that he wanted to finally settle down and get a really, really good home for the kids and for his family. So they weren't, in his words, living like vagabonds. That's what he said to me.
Was he emotional when he discussed this?
It got emotional, yes.
All right. When did it get emotional?
When he was just describing how they had lived, he and the three kids, and that he just really wanted to settle down. He was tired of living like that, and it was emotional. And I cried. So.
Did he cry?
Yes.
All right. Did he describe where he had been living in the last few years?
Objection relevant.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
How long did this meeting last in the suite in the Bel Air Hotel?
To the best of my recollection, Mr. Chernoff, probably about an hour to 90 minutes.
Would you characterize this meeting as essentially one of the last meetings, or essentially the last meeting before, I guess, the lawyers got involved with the numbers and ultimate contract preparation?
To the best of my recollection, probably.
And then at some point a contract was prepared, agreed to, and signed. Is that right?
That is correct.
This contract, it provided for how many shows, Mr. Phillips?
31.
31. Is there any significance to the 31?
Yes.
Okay. What is that significance?
Michael wanted to do 10 more than Prince did.
It appeared to you that he understood the significance of that?
He came up with the number, yes.
All right. And you, of course, agreed?
Yes.
All right. When was this contract signed?
I think sometime mid-January, could have been the third week in January of 2009.
The contract was signed at Michael Jackson's residence?
Yes.
Okay. And you were signatory on that contract? You signed it?
I signed for AEG Live.
All right. And Michael Jackson signed it personally?
That's correct.
Now, tell us, Mr. Phillips, what the contract that you agreed to, how was AEG going to make money on this contract? What was your...
Allow the full question, since we have multiple ones.
What was AEG's stake in the contract?
Objection relevance.
Sustained.
Can you tell us after... can you tell us what Michael Jackson's stake in it was? Can you tell us what could you estimate for us how much you think Michael Jackson was capable of making, assuming successful completion of the 31 shows?
Objection relevance.
Sustained. 350 and 352.
In order to put together concerts like this, there needs to be rehearsals. Is that right?
Correct.
And not only rehearsals, there needs to be a whole lot of let me back up. There needs to be production, initial production to prepare these shows for concerts. Is that right?
Correct.
Choreography.
Correct.
All of the things that you would expect from a show a show from Michael Jackson, right?
That is yes.
All right. The costs of all of these particular preparations and production, the early production, is that something that the contract spoke to?
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
Sustained.
Would part of the contract...
May we approach, Your Honor?
You may.
After the signing of the contract in January 2009, it may not have been after. You understand that you do know that Michael Jackson moved into the Carrollwood residence?
Correct. Yes.
Okay. Do you know when he moved into that residence?
Well, considering we signed the contract in the living room of that residence, it had to be sometime in January.
All right. Do you know, well, let me ask you this. Did AEG Live pay for that residence?
Sustained.
You testified that the contract provided for 31 shows, right?
Correct.
And at some point, that went up from 31 shows. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now, prior to may we approach, Judge? Can
Please. Sure. Chernoff, thank you.
Mr. Phillips, from January, and we're going to assume that the contract, the agreement was signed on January 26, 2009, for purposes of this question. From January 26 to March, first week of March 2009, was there any movement, was there any production on the This Is It concert tour?
No, there wasn't.
All right. And the initial agreement that you made that involved you and Michael Jackson Company was for 31 shows, or actually up to 31 shows. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Was there any conversation about the number of shows? Are you familiar with the teaser, the term teaser
In advertising?
Yeah, in advertising with regard
Yes.
to the number of shows.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yes. Yes.
And
No, I know. Yes.
all right. And was there some plan by AEG Live and perhaps others to perhaps tease a certain number of shows to the public to see how things would go with regard to the sales of the shows?
If I'm understanding your question.
I'm not asking right, I'm sorry, but I think you do understand.
Okay. Initially, we put 10 shows on sale, or we advertised 10 shows, was the initial run. You would never, as a promoter, put all of your shows on sale at the same time because it becomes a disincentive for early purchase.
All right, so that was the first advertised number of shows.
Correct.
All right. And when was this done?
Right after the press conference, March 5th.
All right, and that press conference was March 5th. And
correct.
it was held at the O2 Arena?
That is correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about any conversations you had with Michael Jackson between January 26th and March 5th. Was there further and ongoing negotiations at that time? Or were you essentially, had you essentially stopped having contact with Michael Jackson?
No, we had to put the artwork together for the on sale. So the discussions were creative, and I think Paul Gongaware had other discussions with them about the production.
All right, and that's what was occurring between January 26th and March 5th. Is that
Correct.
right?
Correct.
Okay. Now, on March 5th, did you go out to London for this press conference, for this announcement?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And describe for us how this press conference was set up at the O2 Arena.
Well, my staff in London put it together, had organized it. We had a press agent named Alan Edwards, who I believe had worked with Michael before, and he pretty much organized, invited the press, the media, and my staff set it up.
All right, and you and your staff went out to O2 Arena for this press conference.
That is correct.
And so, as did Michael Jackson and his security staff. Is that right?
Correct. Correct.
Did you stay in the same hotel as he did?
No.
Objection relevance, Your Honor.
I want to.
Just a moment.
Sorry for answering.
That's right. The objection sustained. The last answer is straight.
I want to
Disregard, please.
direct your attention to the press conference itself. Was Michael Jackson scheduled to speak at that press conference?
Yes, he was.
Do you know when he was scheduled to speak?
Objection relevance.
The objection is sustained. 350 and 352.
Was Michael Jackson late for his press
Objection
conference?
relevance.
Sustained. 350 and 352. Another subject. Thank you.
Were you present at his press conference?
Yes,
Objection.
Yes,
The court just ruled next subject.
Thank you. The
Well,
objection
that's not.
is sustained.
I believe the last subject was whether he was late, and this is whether now he had attended. Should I just stay away from the press conference at all, completely,
Correct.
Your Honor?
Thank you.
No press conference. Okay.
You can move to another subject. Thank
okay.
you.
Okay. All right. After the press conference, then there would be a focus then on the production of the show. Is that right?
correct.
And that's exactly what happened.
Correct.
Okay. Now, before we get to that, let's talk about the sales of the show. After the announcement was made on March 5th, how were sales?
We started fabulous, over the top.
And you, how long did it take you to blow past the 10, then the 31 shows?
Well, we did a pre-registration, meaning people could register to purchase tickets. And one of the reasons we did that was to create a database for Michael, so he could sell music to his fans and have direct contact through a website called michaeljacksonlive.com.
All right, and so what happened with the sales?
The registrations were, we had never seen that kind of demand, at least in my career, that kind of demand for tickets for a show.
It became clear that 31 shows were not going to be enough?
Yes, it was obvious that we would have blown through the sales on 31 shows in what we call the pre-sale, and not have had any tickets left for the general public on sale.
All right, so what did you do in response to that? Or what did you or Paul Gongaware do?
Paul called me, said in his inimitable fashion, "Dude, can you call Dr. Tomei and see if Michael will agree to do more shows, because this is an unprecedented demand."
All right, and was that done?
Yes, I called Dr. Tomei.
All right. Did Michael Jackson eventually agree to do more shows?
Right, they say it almost simultaneous with my conversations with Dr. Tomei. I also spoke to Michael
Just like that?
within 20 minutes.
All right, but Michael Jackson had some requests to do more shows, right?
That is correct.
And what were those requests?
Dr. Tomei first told me what they were, and then Michael called me directly, and basically what he wanted was 50 shows. That was the maximum amount of shows he wanted to do, because he didn't want to, as he said to me, live in London and have to get a new passport. And what he wanted was me to find an estate for him that I could lease outside of London. And he was very specific. He wanted 16-plus acres, running streams, horses, And basically what he explained to me is he didn't want to be trapped in a hotel suite, no matter how beautiful, in the heart of London, and not be able to leave and have the kids and he cloistered. He wanted to give them a pastoral country vibe, living vibe. Okay, so condition one was that I find an estate for him to live in and the children. And then condition two was that at the 50th show, he wanted me to arrange for the Guinness Book of World Records to be there because he knew this was a feat that no performer would ever be able to beat.
And you knew that was a feat that no performer had ever beaten? Probably never would, huh?
Unfortunately, in my career, yes.
Let's talk about the process then that went on to get this show together for the O2 Arena. And were you involved, or at least familiar with, the process of getting the This Is It production prepared and ready for final shows?
Yes.
All right. In March, was there any production going on for the This Is It show?
No production had started. I don't believe it kicked into gear until sometime in April.
What was happening in March?
In March, Michael and Paul had a couple of meetings about the show itself with some production people we had brought on board to help do the budgets. And to the best of my recollection, that's when Michael told Paul that he wanted Kenny Ortega to be the director.
All right, and Kenny Ortega was contacted.
Correct.
All right, now let's go into April. In April, what was Kenny Ortega part of the team in April? By April?
By April, I believe he was.
All right. What was going on in April with regard to this production?
Kenny had arranged for a production designer named Michael Cotton to be employed, Travis Payne as chief choreographer, and assorted other personnel were hired.
So we're hiring personnel in April. Are there other meetings going on about some of the creative issues that are involved in the production?
To the best of my knowledge, yes, I wasn't in all those meetings.
All right, so we're hiring staff. Are we also rehearsing, or not rehearsing, but
Audition.
the word is
Audition.
lost. What do you do with dancers?
Audition.
Thanks. Thank you.
Is
Lost
that
the word.
okay?
Auditioning dancers during that period of time?
Yes.
Okay. Now, in April, then, when everything is ultimately set up and we've got the personnel in place, when ultimately do rehearsals start for the production?
Yeah, I honestly don't recollect when the rehearsal started.
Do you know? Could you narrow it down to a month? Did they begin it in April or in May?
I believe that they may have started in May, but
Okay.
I'm not 100% sure.
Let's go back to April, and I want to talk about or May, early May. I want to talk about any conversation that you might have had with Michael Jackson about a personal doctor. Do you recall having that conversation with him?
Yeah, it was a conversation that I had with him. It would have been sometime in May.
Sometime in May.
Mhm.
All right. And was this a topic that you approached Michael on, or he approached you on?
No, it started, I wasn't involved in the initial discussions.
All right. How did you get involved?
I had returned from a road trip. I was traveling, and I stopped by the Forum, because rehearsals at that point had moved into the Forum.
Do you know,
So this would have been later in May.
late May.
Yeah.
All right.
Had moved into the Forum, and I was walking in the hallway in front of the production office, and Paul Gongaware, a gentleman named Tim Woolley, who was our tour accountant, or a show accountant for the shows. And Frank DeLeo came up to me and said, we're having an issue with Michael on the hiring of a personal physician. He wants to hire his own physician to attend to his needs 24/7 and have him travel with the tour. And we haven't been able to talk him out of it, and it's going to be very, very expensive. Could you take a shot at Michael and see if you can convince him to use a London-based physician?
All right, and you agreed to take a shot?
Yes, I did.
All right, and what did you do?
I called Michael. I called Michael Amir to set up a call to speak to Michael Jackson because that was the protocol. And I spoke to Michael, and I said to him, I said,
Which
Mike
Michael?
Jackson. Spoke to Michael Jackson, and I said, Mike, it's going to be very expensive to hire a doctor from America and have them on call 24/7 with you in London for these shows, and it is London when we're in a major capital city. Do you think would that be okay if we got you someone, but we got someone who was based in London and was available when you needed them? And he was very firm and said, no, I need my own physician, and I need him 24/7, and I have a physician.
All right, and this is in late May.
I believe so,
All right.
Mr. Chernoff.
And you said what after Michael Jackson told you that?
Well, I mean, he was firm, and I said, okay, then I'll have Paul Gongware negotiate the best terms he can with the doctor for you.
All right, and that was your idea to have Paul Gongware call this particular doctor?
Paul was already engaged in the discussions. I really had nothing to do with the hiring of.
All right. And later on, you learned that the doctor that Michael Jackson was talking about was Dr. Conrad Murray.
Correct.
All right. Had you met Dr. Murray prior to that conversation you had with Michael Jackson?
No,
You knew nothing about Dr. Murray?
nothing.
Okay. And Michael Jackson never mentioned that I have a physician or anything of that nature?
No, we never had that discussion. No.
All right. At some point, though, you met Dr. Murray
Correct.
after that conversation. When did you meet Dr. Murray?
To the best of my recollection, there was a meeting at Michael's house on Carrollwood Drive. I think it was in very early June.
Was it the first week of June, second week of June?
I think it was the first week of June.
All right. Was it on a weekday? Was it on a weekend?
It was a weekday.
You're sure it was a weekend?
No, I believe it was a weekday.
A weekday.
Yeah. I mean, the truth is, I'm just dealing with recollections of
I
events that
understand.
happened a long time ago. I'm not 100% sure.
Well, do you know whether there was rehearsal that day?
I don't know.
All right. Do you know what time the meeting was?
It was in the late afternoon.
Before evening? Before 4, before 5?
Either 4 or 5
All right. This meeting was at Michael Jackson's house?
at the Carrollwood Drive house.
All right. And who called the meeting?
I think Paul Gongware and Frank DeLeo did.
And do you know what the topic or the reason what reason was given to call this meeting?
It was a preliminary meeting to discuss, what Dr. Murray was going to do for Michael, and there were some concerns that Frank had and others about Michael not eating, losing weight, and we wanted to just have a general meeting to discuss Michael's health.
All right. So at the meeting was Frank DeLeo
Correct.
and yourself. Dr. Murray was there.
Correct.
Michael Jackson was there.
Correct.
And
And Paul Gongware.
Paul Gongware. What about Kenny Ortega?
To the best of my recollection, he wasn't at this meeting.
Okay. Now we're going to go back to that meeting in a second, but now I want to kind of move back to May, and I want to ask you: do you recall any concerns being given by Kenny Ortega or others about Michael Jackson's condition during performances or rehearsals?
In May?
In May.
No.
All right. Did you have any conversations with Michael Amir Williams about Michael Jackson's condition?
No.
So let's go to the meeting in June, the first meeting. Do you recall the conversation? What conversation was being had at that meeting?
Very, very vaguely, because it was so long ago. I just remember during the meeting, Dr. Murray said that he was going to make sure Michael had a proper diet, and he was preparing these very high nutrient protein shakes for him. And that's kind of the highlight that I remember of the meeting.
Do you remember having a conversation with Dr. Murray about Michael Jackson's health, about his condition during that meeting?
Just asking him how is his health, is it good? And he said yes, he's in great health.
Any other conversation with him?
Regarding?
Anything involving Michael Jackson's condition or medical history?
No.
All right. All right, so the agreement was made, or were you satisfied at the meeting that everybody had addressed the issues with Michael Jackson's weight and health?
Yeah, I felt very good based on both Michael and Dr. Murray's responses.
All right, well,
as did Frank DeLeo.
And how did you feel about how Dr. Murray responded to your concerns, or the concerns of AEG or the production company?
Well, it was all of our concerns. But, no, it was very obvious that Michael had great trust in Dr. Murray in that meeting and deferred to him on the questions of health.
Was it obvious to you that Dr. Murray also had great concern for Michael Jackson?
You're asking my observation?
Yes.
Yes, I thought they had a close personal relationship.
All right. And it appeared that Dr. Murray wanted to help Michael Jackson.
Yes, it did.
Were you directly involved in any of the negotiations with Dr. Murray, hiring Dr. Murray for this tour?
No.
All right. Want to go past the meeting early June and talk about where the production was after that time. Now, at the time that you had your first meeting in early June at Michael Jackson's house, rehearsals were going on at that time.
Yes.
All right. And they were going on at the Forum, is that correct?
At that time, to the best of my recollection, they had probably left Burbank, Center Staging, which were the rehearsal studios, and had moved into production rehearsals at the Forum. It was sometime in June.
All right. And so do you recall whether or not the rehearsals were at June at that time during that meeting, the first meeting in June?
No, I don't.
All right. But rehearsals were absolutely going on, you know that? Right?
Yes.
Okay. And Michael Jackson was expected to be at these rehearsals?
Not at all of them, no.
Was there any concern sometime after, in June, about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals?
There was a concern. I think it was more towards the second week in June that Kenny expressed, Ortega expressed to me.
All right. Prior to the second week of June, did Kenny Ortega express any concern about Michael Jackson missing rehearsals or having poor rehearsals?
Well, not during the May rehearsals were at Center Staging. And Michael came to a few of those, but he wasn't expected because there was a new band, ostensibly. There were some of the same players he'd used before, but a new music director. So they were getting the music right, and he did not need to be at every one of those rehearsals.
Okay, so there was no concern in May. How about prior to your first meeting in June of 2009? Was there any concern expressed by Kenny Ortega or anybody else?
To the best of my recollection, not that early.
All right, so now let's go that first week of June, the early June, and let's forward that you're saying that there were problems then with Michael Jackson missing rehearsals.
Kenny started to get concerned that Michael wasn't engaged as much as he needed to be, as focused as he needed to be on a production of this magnitude.
And you say he started to get concerned? Was this a progressive problem? Or did he just get concerned after missing one rehearsal?
I don't know, to be honest with you.
All right. Did he address this concern with you? Did Kenny Ortega come to you and say, look, we need to do something?
I think well, Kenny spoke to me numerous times, but I think he first went to Paul and to Frank DeLeo. Because they were there every day. I had a business to run. I was doing other things.
All right. Now, as we get into June, do you recall when this production was about to pack up and move to London? Do you know the date of when that was going to occur?
To the best of my recollection, it was supposed to move to London around June 25th.
All right. And so as we get into June, it becomes extremely important, doesn't it, that rehearsals are attended and well and done well by all the individuals involved, because you're getting close to the big time for the show to start. Is that right?
Yes.
Sort of the pressure on Kenny Ortega and the entire production rises as you get closer to that show. Is that right?
That is correct.
And is this pressure, did you start seeing that in Kenny Ortega?
Yes.
And the main concern that Kenny Ortega was having was Michael Jackson's performance, his showing up at rehearsals.
And his focus.
And his
Was
focus.
the word that Kenny used.
When Kenny Ortega brought this to your attention, what did you do?
I may have had a conversation with Dr. Murray. I remember having a phone call with Michael Amir Williams saying, it's really critical that Michael show up for rehearsals because the show he's the fulcrum of the production and it really revolves around him. So even though he knows these dance moves, intimately, and he's just reinterpreting what he's been doing his whole career. Okay, the entire show, it's such a massive production, it really needs Michael's presence because people have to key off of him, and they have to build the cues, the effects, everything off of Michael.
And why did you call Michael Amir Williams and not Michael Jackson himself?
Because when I actually called for Michael to have that discussion, but Michael was, I was told he was resting at the time.
All right, so you had the conversation instead with Michael Amir Williams.
Correct.
You said also that you spoke to Dr. Murray.
I think I may have had a phone call with him. I'm not 100% sure.
All right.
Because there was so much going on at this time.
Did you speak to anyone else?
No.
No. Ultimately, as things progressed, there was another meeting held on the 20th of June at Michael Jackson's residence. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. Now let's talk about the events that occurred the week prior. You're familiar that the week prior there were further missed rehearsals. Is that your understanding?
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week.
I wasn't at the rehearsals that week is the answer.
You
Sustained, the answer remains.
Did you receive phone calls from Kenny Ortega stating that?
Objection calls for hearsay.
The objection is sustained.
There was in trial, you understand that there was offered into evidence or shown to the jury an email that was sent from Kenny Ortega to you.
Correct. Yes.
And you have seen that email?
Yes, you showed it to me.
Okay.
What exhibit number?
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, just for the benefit of the jury, since it's been reflected, can counsel take a moment?
Yes, we can. Let me see your list.
I think it's People's One, actually. Thank you from the peanut gallery in the jury box. People's One. Thank you.
All right. This email from Kenny Ortega, do you recall getting this email?
I believe I got it the next morning. I think it was sent in the middle of the night, and I received it when I awoke the next day.
All right, this email that talks about pulling the plug, about we played the tough love card. Did you understand what Kenny Ortega was talking about?
I didn't understand the tough love part of it. So no, I didn't. I really wasn't sure what he was referring to by the tough love part of it. But I understood the rest of the email pertaining to Michael coming to rehearsal but not being well, being sent home, and that he was getting concerned that Ms. Paul Gongaware described the arc of the production. First time I had ever heard that, but that as we were getting closer to the actual opening of this massive show, that there was concern that Michael wasn't really taking it seriously enough or focused on it.
Was there concern that the show could not go on if he didn't take it more seriously?
No.
So the concern was that it would have to be pushed back further and further and further?
That there might have to be postponements if they didn't have enough technical time to deal with the size of the production.
And at some point it could be postponed to the point where production would not be possible.
I can't speculate on that.
When Kenny Ortega in his email suggests pulling the plug, is that a phrase you used or Paul Gongaware used? Do you know where that came from?
No. First time I read it was in that email.
All right. And
No one on our end was ever contemplating pulling the plug.
All right. Was this do you know whether this is a conversation that Kenny Ortega had with Michael Jackson?
Objection calls for speculation.
Sustained. Calls for hearsay.
What did you do in response to getting that email?
Well, actually, I got the email, but Frank DeLeo, who was out of town at the time and also received the email, or was forwarded a copy. I don't know if he was on the original chain. He actually called me from either Nashville or Pittsburgh, where his principal residence was, and asked me if I would put together a meeting on that Saturday. I believe this 20th was a Saturday. Would I put together a meeting with Michael, Dr. Murray, Kenny Ortega, and myself?
He was pretty adamant about that meeting?
Who, Frank?
Yes.
He thought it was essential to have the meeting, yes.
All right. And what did you do then?
I believe I either emailed or called Dr. Murray to set up the meeting.
Did Frank DeLeo, in his conversation with you about having this meeting, did he ever mention to you concern about drug use by Michael Jackson?
No.
No. Do you recall having any conversation with Dr. Murray about drug use by Michael Jackson?
When you say drug use, are you talking about prescription drugs?
Yes.
There was one conversation I had with Dr. Murray after in the June meeting. Mm-hmm. To my recollection, it was at the end of our meeting. I believe I went up to Dr. Murray and said that Dr. Klein, who's a dermatologist in Beverly Hills, was also treating Michael, and was he aware of that? And I just left it at that.
All right. And why did you feel the need to tell Dr. Murray that? What was your concern?
My concern and why I felt I should tell him or ask him if he knew about that was that there was a meeting at a production meeting at Michael's house around that same time period where Michael was not as focused as he usually is. Because on the production meetings, he was like laser focused on every element of the show. I mean, he's a consummate perfectionist. In this one meeting, he just seemed a little distracted, not focused.
What did that have to do with Dr. Klein?
Well, after the meeting, as we were leaving, I asked Michael Amir Williams, I said, is everything okay? Out of concern. And he said, no, he just came from Dr. Klein's office.
All right. And
I didn't know what that meant, but that's what he said to me.
You didn't know what kind of treatment
No.
that Dr. Klein was giving Michael
No.
Jackson. But it was sufficient for you to mention it to Dr. Murray.
Yes.
Since you didn't know about the treatment that Dr. Klein was giving, did you further just say, did you say, hey, Dr. Murray, my concern is that he looks a little out of it when he leaves Dr. Klein's office, or did you just simply say, hey, he's seeing Dr. Klein?
I just said he's seeing Dr. Klein. You know, I mean, because he's his principal physician, I thought he should know, in case Michael hadn't told him, that he should know that he was seeing another doctor.
All right. Were you aware of any other doctors
No.
at the time? All right. You were aware that Michael Jackson had problems in the past then, with prescription drugs.
The objection, just a minute, please. The objection is sustained, the partial answer is stricken.
All right. What did you assume that the meeting on June 20, the emergency, would you classify this as an emergency meeting, the meeting at Carrollwood on June 20th?
Well, based on Kenny's email, it would appear that it was, in his mind, an emergency meeting. I don't like to use that word because it sounds a little alarmist to me, but there was a meeting held.
It wasn't just Kenny Ortega's email, it was also Frank DeLeo's phone call.
Correct. It was actually Frank who asked, and he couldn't be there because he was out of town, and he asked me to set up the meeting. Because it might have been a meeting that Frank would have set up with Dr. Murray and Michael himself.
What did you think the meeting was going to be about?
Michael's tardiness on attending rehearsals.
Were you aware of the events that had transpired on June 19th, the day before?
Only from reading the email about sending him
All
home.
right. And Frank DeLeo didn't discuss it with you?
He wasn't there. So he was also responding to what Kenny was telling us.
Okay.
And also John Hugendahl, who was the production manager for the show, also said that he felt that there was something wrong.
All right. So at the meeting, who showed up? Who arrived for the meeting?
The meeting was, the attendees at the meeting were Dr. Murray, Michael Jackson, Kenny Ortega, and me.
And this was at Michael Jackson's residence,
At
right?
the living room in the Carrollwood house.
Did you call Dr. Murray yourself?
I don't remember if I emailed him or called him about the meeting.
Did you call Kenny Ortega
Yes.
and Michael Amir or Michael Jackson?
No, I actually asked Dr. Murray to set up the meeting.
All right, so you called Dr. Murray and said, please set this up. Did you tell him what it was
Yes.
for?
Yes.
Did you tell Dr. Murray what the meeting was for?
I believe I told him that Kenny Ortega had concern. I may have even forwarded him that email. I don't remember, but it's very possible I may have even forwarded him the email or read the email to him.
All right. So, what time was the meeting held?
To the best of my recollection, it was in the early afternoon on Saturday, June 20th, 2008.
And what
2009.
And what was discussed at this meeting?
At the meeting, Kenny opened the meeting up by talking about his concern that Michael needed to really focus and to really pay attention to this production, that it was massive, and they couldn't do it without him. They needed his engagement. They needed to build it around him. There were huge technical aspects to this production, including Michael flying in a 3D suit and all these things that really required his attendance, especially in the later stage production rehearsals.
Would you classify Kenny Ortega's description of this as animated? Was he pretty excited when he was talking about this?
No, he was pretty level and calm.
And was he directing this at Michael Jackson?
Yes.
All right, and what was Michael Jackson's response?
Michael didn't respond immediately. Okay, Dr. Murray spoke for Michael on the situation and Michael's focus and Michael's showing up and guaranteed us that Michael would get into it, would connect. Michael then explained that he had been working with Travis Payne, the lead choreographer, at home, that he knew these routines. That's why he hadn't really engaged as intensely as Kenny would have liked him to up till now. I mean, Michael was very clear that he was ready. What he said to Kenny, to the best of my recollection in terms of the wording, is he said, "You build the house, and I'll put on the door and paint it." And that's as direct a quote as I can remember.
And this is a quote that he gave at the meeting.
Correct.
And to Kenny Ortega.
To Kenny Ortega directly.
And what was Kenny Ortega's response to that?
It was great. That's all I wanted to hear from you.
All right, so
Yes. And that was happening. There was an exchange between Dr. Murray and Dr. Kenny, and then Kenny Ortega and Dr. Murray, that Kenny should be the director of the show and leave Michael's health to Dr. Murray.
was Kenny Ortega complaining about Michael Jackson's health?
No, he just didn't understand why Michael wasn't engaged the way he expected him to be. So one of the reasons he was speculating is that there were health concerns.
All right, and Kenny Ortega was making that comment that perhaps there's health concerns.
Correct.
Did he make any comments about drug concerns, use of drugs?
Not in that meeting, no.
Did he ever make that comment to you? Was he ever, and he expressed that concern to you ever?
Objection calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
Did anybody at that meeting discuss with Dr. Murray about the possibility that Michael Jackson was using drugs, prescription drugs or otherwise?
No, not to my
It was
recollection.
never brought up in that meeting at all?
Not to my recollection, no.
You did not go to Dr. Murray after the meeting and tell him anything about it?
No,
All right. You don't know if Kenny Ortega did?
no. We all left together, so I don't think so.
Dr. Murray left with you?
No, he stayed on.
All right. Were you present at the rehearsals on 23rd and 24th?
Yes, I was.
Okay. Was that a standard practice for you?
For me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, considering the meeting we had on June 20th, yes, it would have been remiss of me not to show up to the first rehearsal after that meeting.
It seemed important to you to show up.
Yes, it did.
Make sure everything was back on track.
Correct.
All right. I want to take you to the 25th of June, 2009, at the hospital. When did you first learn that Michael Jackson was taken to the hospital?
I received a phone call from Frank DeLeo. I think it was approximately 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning. That Michael was having trouble breathing. There were paramedics at the house. Where was I? I was in Westwood. He said, "You're closer to the house than me. Can you get up there right away?" I'm still at the Beverly Hilton Hotel.
All right. And what time was this?
I believe, to the best of my recollection, it was somewhere around 10:30 or 11 o'clock in the morning.
All right. And this came from Frank DeLeo?
Yes. First call I got was from Frank DeLeo.
Okay. Do you know who called Frank DeLeo?
No.
All right. So what did you do in response to that?
I jumped in my car and sped up to Michael's house on Carrollwood Drive.
All right. And what time? Do you recall how long it took you to get to Michael's house in Carrollwood Drive?
About 15 minutes.
All right. And when you arrived, what did you see?
The paramedics and the ambulance, the red ambulance, was leaving the gates of the Carrollwood Drive, and right behind it were two SUVs, black SUVs, that I believed had Michael's security patrol and his family, meaning the children.
They were leaving the residence.
Correct.
And what did you do?
I turned my car around and got behind them.
Okay. And you went to the hospital.
Yes.
All right. Were you at the hospital the entire time that security or Michael Jackson was there?
Yes, I was.
All right. And do you recall how long you stayed when you left the hospital?
I was there all day into the early evening.
And at some point during that period of time, you saw Dr. Murray there?
Yes, I did.
All right. And you saw Dr. Murray in the emergency room?
When there was a curtain, they were behind these sliding glass doors. I was in the hallway. Eventually, I was joined by Frank DeLeo. The two of us were in the hallway, sitting on a gurney, as I remember. And there was this flurry of activity going on behind this curtain in the emergency room. at the Ronald Reagan Emergency Center at UCLA.
All right, and you saw Dr. Murray in there.
Yes.
All right, and where else did you see Dr. Murray? In the hospital, if you remember.
Later that day, in a lobby, to a lobby that was south of the emergency room complex. There was a lobby connecting the hospital, and there was a conference room that we were using, and I saw him in front of that conference room.
All right, and what were you using the conference room for, Mr. Phillip?
Just to get everyone, Frank, everyone involved with Michael, his attorneys, everyone in a room to deal with the tragedy that unfolded.
And when you say deal with the tragedy, you're talking about how to announce it to the public, for instance, how to deal with the media, that kind of thing?
Correct.
All right. All right. Did you have occasion to talk to Dr. Murray?
Once.
And where were you when you had that conversation with him?
I was in the in this lobby of the Ronald Reagan building.
All right. And did Dr. Murray say anything to you about what had happened with Michael Jackson?
No, he was in severe distress, obviously.
Did he say anything to you?
No, to be honest with you, I don't remember. There was so much going on, but he was just in severe distress.
All right, I'll pass the witness.
Mr. Chernoff, thank you. May this be an appropriate time to take the mid-afternoon break?
That's fine, Your Honor.
Yes? Let's do that, ladies and gentlemen. Please take the mid-afternoon break. Of course, remembering all of the admonishments. We'll be in recess until approximately 2:35, and we'll notify you. Thank you.